following scripture quotations are taken from the Holy Bible, New Living Translation, with copyright by Tyndale House Foundation, used by permission of Tyndale House Publishers, all rights reserved. Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Peachy Pie, and this is a mini applause for you. Why do you get a mini applause? Because you are amazing. And thank you for making it to my channel, and you made it through yesterday, and you made it through today. And that's a monumentous occasion in and of itself. But since you made it through yesterday, and you made it through today, and I have faith that you're going to make it through tomorrow, why don't you just hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can be here when I post another video. Now, a little bit of a trigger warning for today. I'm about to ruin your Christmas. Well, today's video is going to contain some mentions of rape, murder, and some other crimes against humans, but we are talking about Christmas, which is really sad that those two things are in the same sentence. Anyway, let's get into it. I want to just say thank you to the makers of Paint by Number for allowing me to play their game. I do so love the Christmas stuff, but this video might just change your mind about whether you love Christmas or not. So, Jesus' exact birth date is truthfully unknown. The Bible doesn't give it to us. Scholars are still trying to find out what the date is. They've been trying to do it for decades. And although I don't really care about the date, I have to acknowledge Stephen Nissenbaum's perspective. He is quoted saying that if you want to show that Jesus was a real human being, just like every other human being, not just somebody who appeared like a hologram, then what better way to think of him being born in a normal, humble, human way than to celebrate his birth, right? But the origins of Christmas, although it is attributed to the birth of Jesus, which we've now established is actually not so, the origins of Christmas are much darker than you think. The beginning of Christmas can really be tracked to like the Roman winter solstice, but today we're going to talk about specifically the pagan festival of Saturnalia, which was hosted for a week between the 17th to the 25th of December. If you were alive a couple thousand years ago, we'd be currently right now in the Festival of Saturnalia, which is the olden-timey equivalent of, you wouldn't even believe it, it's the olden-timey equivalent of the Purge. It was a festival of lawlessness when Roman courts were closed, and so no one could be penalized for injuring someone or damaging property. Yeah, the literal Purge. Craziness. And another thing is that there would be human sacrifice. An innocent person from each community would also be forced to indulge in food and sex for the entirety of the week. Then that person would be sacrificed on the 25th of December. The Romans believed that this brutal sacrifice would destroy the forces of evil or something like that. The allusion to the story of Christ is not lost on me, but this was the Festival of Saturnalia, or the Festival of the Purge, as I like to think of it, because it kind of was the same thing. Anyway, so Saturnalia was actually kind of like a huge party. There would be lots and lots of like drinking, and as we know, when tied with drinking, there's other kind of lawless acts like rape and other sexual obscenities and indulgences. And people would go kind of from house to house singing naked, and people would also eat people-shaped biscuits, though that sounds creepy. They were the essentially modern equivalents, precursors to the modern equivalents of caroling and gingerbread cookies, respectively. The Christmas tree itself is also a pagan tradition. Bringing trees into the home and decorating them was a ritual associated with the worshippers of a goddess called Asherah. If you've read any part of the Old Testament, or any large part of the Old Testament, you'd know God has something against Asherah poles in homes and communities. Anyway, basically Christianity kind of stole the holiday in order to create a Christian holiday out of the event in the 4th century. And it may have been an attempt to mass convert pagans by allowing them to keep their religious holiday, but this meant that they would have to leave the holiday of Saturnalia as it was, and it did not reflect typical Christian ideals. So because of its pagan origins, some Christian factions still don't believe in Christmas and won't celebrate the tradition at all, right? Eventually though, ideals began to change of like the festival practices, though some Catholic leaders in the 14th century revived some of their more brutal customs, this time however practicing their anti-Semitism, unfortunately. Anti-Semitism, which if you didn't know basically means anti-Jew. So Christmas is kind of sad, guys. An excerpt from simpletoremember.com on the real story of Christmas reads, some of the most depraved customs of the Saturnalia carnival were intentionally revived by the Catholic Church in 1466, when Pope Paul II, for the amusement of his Roman citizens, forced Jews to race naked through the streets of the city. An eyewitness account reports, before they were to run, Jews were richly fed so as to make the race more difficult for them, and at the same time more amusing for spectators. They ran, amid Rome's taunting shrieks and peals of laughter, while the Holy Father stood upon a richly ornamented balcony and laughed heartily. Right? And throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, some rabbis were dressed in clownish outfits and paraded down the streets while being jeered at, laughed at, and pelted with various items. Later, in 1881, due to Christian leaders in Poland inciting the masses to anti-Semitic riots on Christmas Day, no less, 12 Jews were brutally murdered in Warsaw, and many were maimed, many Jewish women were raped, and around 2 million rubles of property was damaged or destroyed. Essentially, while Christmas is touted as the birthday of Jesus, a time of giving gifts and celebration, it's actually a pagan ritual that was stolen and repurposed for the church, then used as an opportunity to torture, rape, maim, murder, and damage the property of Jewish people. The modern equivalent, I would imagine, would be to celebrate like Kristallnacht or the Holocaust and give each other gifts while completely ignoring the two disadvantaged groups which today's Christians so proudly cross over. So, should you celebrate Christmas? While I definitely would like to say no and that I will no longer celebrate Christmas, I don't think that that's the answer here. I think you should celebrate Christmas. I think everyone should still celebrate Christmas, but for the right reason. We should use this holiday as a reminder of those Jews who lost their lives to anti-Semitic Christian practices and other type of groups as well, and people that we should also remember the disadvantaged pagan groups who never had the choice of developing a close, loving relationship with Jesus Christ, but instead chose to follow the masses in order to keep their holiday. If Jesus, who was a Jew by the way, is the reason for the season, why is it so easy for Christians to hate and oppress in His name than to love and support in His name? An interesting thought, no less. Anyway, that leads me to our scripture of the day, which is from James 2 verse 14, but I'm going to read until verse 17 because I think it really ties in with what I've been saying. Verse 14 says, "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, 'Goodbye, have a good day, stay warm and eat well,' but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless." I don't want to be a dead, useless Christian, and I don't want my faith to be dead and useless. So let's go out into the world, and while we celebrate this Christmas season, right, let's take a look at the people who have been disadvantaged by Christians and by Christianity, and actually show them some compassion, and reach out to them and remember them and their struggles any way that we can this festive season. Righty-tighty, thank you so much for joining me. Please consider supporting TMC's, link in the description, links to all of my books. Surprisingly, I'm a Christmas lover, and my stories all have Christmas related themes, and whichever I have to be consider going forward. But I wish you a mindful Christmas season as we remember those who lost their lives to hate and misunderstandings. And I personally think that it's time to start making things right. And what better time than the Christmas season? So I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening and that you feel fulfilled and remember those who suffered so that we can have some presents, some cake, and some hot chocolate. Anyway, have a fantastic evening further. Cheerio!